You can have multiple functions attached to the same hook. It's perfectly normal for several plugins to use the same hook. Let's look at how you would prioritize hooks. Open the Hooks example plugin we created previously. I'm going to copy and paste the WP footer hook and its function. Then I'm going to change the function name. I'm going to add underscore v2. I'm also going to change the text and add version 2. For formatting reasons, I'm going to add break tags to both these functions. Before you refresh the page, which text do you think will appear first? Let's find out. Refresh the page and you'll notice that the first version displays first and version 2 displays second. If I were to move the second function above the first, then the text positions will switch. I'm going to refresh the page again. As you can see here, the version 2 text is appearing first. By default, WordPress will run functions as first come, first serve. You can completely override this by using the third parameter, which determines the priority of the function. I'm going to switch back these functions and I will use the third parameter of the add action function. This parameter's value must be an integer which determines the priority. The lower the number, the higher the priority, and vice versa. By default, all functions get the priority of 10. I want this function to run first. I'll set it to something like 5. Let's refresh the page and you will now see the version 2 text appearing first. Just like that, you can determine the order of your functions by setting the priority. Even if you're not repeating the same hook, setting a priority can be helpful if other plugins are also using the same hook. If you feel that your plugin deserves to run first, then you should set the priority to a low number. Now that we understand how the priority works, let's see how plugins initiate these hooks. In the resource section, I provide a link to the function WP footer. If you scroll down to the source section, you'll see that all this function does is call a function called doAction. This function will trigger all hooks related to the string passed in. In this case, the WP footer action hook is started. This is how all action hooks are started. It really is this simple. To reiterate, first, all hooks need to be registered. To register a hook, you need to use the function add action. The hook you want to register is defined in the first parameter. Keep in mind that WordPress will accept in any name. If I were to pass in foo, then WordPress will perfectly accept this. It's very important to register hooks when your plugin and theme is initiated. After all hooks are registered, WordPress will run its course, and when it's time to run all hooks, it will use the function doAction followed by the name of the hook it would like to run. WordPress uses this function throughout its core and calls multiple hooks. This is why we never have to worry about running them. To view a list of hooks, you can find those in the resource section of this lecture. There are two kinds of hooks, which are action hooks and filter hooks. I also provide a link to what WordPress calls the Plugins API. Here you can find a list of functions that makes hooks all possible. Of course, you're not limited to the WordPress hooks. You can even create your own hooks. Let's explore how that works. Inside the plugin file, create a new action hook for the WP footer and call the function JUFooter. I will define the function right afterwards. I'm going to comment out all previous code. Next, create a second function called JUKillWP. This function will never run unless we call it. However, I want to call it with a custom hook. Inside the footer function, I'm going to call the doAction function. The hook I want to run will be called JUCustomFooter. This is a completely custom hook that I just created. There isn't anything else that I need to do. Now any plugins and themes can hook into this event and run their own functions. I want to run my function JUKillWP. To do this, I'm going to use the function addAction, and for the first parameter, I'm going to pass in our custom hook called JUCustomFooter. The second parameter is the JUKillWP function. Inside the JUKillWP function, I'm going to echo out some text. Just like that, we created a custom hook and can now run it. Let's refresh the page and we should now see our message being outputted. Let me break down what's going on. When WordPress is initialized, it will load all the plugins. At this point, the template nor the content is loaded. Our hooks example plugin will register its hooks. Eventually, WordPress will begin loading the template. The template will call the WP footer function. As we saw earlier, the WP footer function will call the doAction function, which will trigger the WP footer event. In the code, we call the doAction function. We can then trigger our own custom event. In this case, the custom event would be JUCustomFooter. From here, any functions that are registered to this event will start to run. In our code, we hook into this event and the function that will end up running is the JUKillWP function. This function runs and outputs the text. That's it. This also works for filters. However, the function for running a filter is called apply filters. There are a couple of other functions, but we won't be going over them as they aren't used as much. Now that you understand how the Plugins API works, it's time to get started with plugin development. If you feel a little lost, that's okay. We'll be using the Plugins API plenty. Once again, despite its name, the Plugins API can also be used in themes. It's not exclusive to plugins.